Should Vin change the title of the show? Let's talk about it, y'all. Middle America. Well, I was having a conversation with a good friend of mine. One of the best friends I've found on the channel. We had a disagreement, and she signed off by saying, you should change their channel to Right of Middle America. Now this was in a larger context of my supposed right-wing bias on this show. Which, it was a text conversation. It's like 2 or 3 in the morning, my time. So you can't really hear tone in text, obviously. But I was chuckling the whole time as I was being accused of having a right-wing bias. I wanted to tell my friend, like, shoot, I wish you would tell some of these commentators that have watched our show and have commented that I had a right-wing bias. Here's Kelly Dickerson. Same old biased leftist outrage. She's talking about me. I thought you were better than this, Vin and Sori. If I wanted to watch leftist bias, I would go watch CNN or listen to NPR. Shame on you both. Unsubscribed. Here's Jimmy Durex 4 weeks ago. Typical lefty rats. Here's Cooking Fever Extravaganza. What the F? You're no better than CNN taking things out of context. I won't watch any more of this BS because you would want somebody to take a 5-second clip, etc., etc., etc. Here are the facts. Anytime I say something critical of Trump or anybody on the right, I get messages like that in the comment section. Anytime I say something critical of the left, I get accusations that I'm biased toward the right. The fact of the matter is, we're in a state in our country now where people can't take any form of criticism outside of the context of their tribalism. Those are the facts. Here's the thing. Left wing and right wing generally describes the two halves of our republic. Generally speaking, Republicans have been lumped in with the right wing. Generally speaking, Democrats have been lumped in with the left wing. And there's all different types of adjectives used to describe blue state, red state, etc., etc. The reason that we have terminology like this, and of course it's a generalization, and we're going to talk about generalizations in a second, but the reason we have terminologies like this is because it functions as shorthand. In normal conversation, people do not qualify themselves to death when they make a statement, especially when it comes to political persuasions. The analogy that I use a lot in this situation is Christianity. Now, I would probably most closely be related to the Anabaptist tradition, which I would argue is a very, very early form of Christianity, particularly when it comes to radical pacifism. I'm a radical pacifist. I don't believe you should ever use lethal means against another human being, even in the defense of yourself or others. That's radical pacifism. But you know what happens? Anytime I talk about being a Christian, people always say, well, Christians killed a whole bunch of innocent people in the Crusades. Or they'll say, Christians killed a whole bunch of Jews during the Holocaust. Or they'll say, Christians justified slavery during the antebellum slave trade in the American South. And you know how I respond? I say, yeah, that's true. Now, they're not talking about me specifically, because within Christianity, I'm sure everybody knows there are different denominations of Christianity that emphasize certain things, believe certain things, and don't believe other things. But the term Christians killed people in the Crusades, or Christians killed people in Nazi Germany, is shorthand. People are not obligated to say non-Protestant, non-Presbyterian, non-Eastern Orthodox, Western Roman Catholic Christians kill people in the Crusades. People aren't obligated to say that. People don't do that in normal conversation. They just say Christians. And I don't get offended. And I don't try to separate myself from other Christians when people say that. You know why? Because there's a big tent called Christianity. And within that big tent are little cubicles called denominations. So yes, they're not talking about my specific denomination, but they are talking about my big tent. And the fact of the matter is, whether you're on the left or you're on the right, or you're a Republican, you're a Democrat, you're blue, you're red, call yourself whatever you want, we both know that there's, generally speaking, a giant tent that all of us are in, one or the other. And so that's how we talk in normal parlance. If, for example, you are for example, I made a comment about right-wingers being pro-war. The reason for that is, in my experience, the big wars that we had with Afghanistan, Iraq, etc., were almost universally supported by the right wing, and the folks that were decrying the civilian casualties and things of that nature, doing exposés on civilian casualties, were on the left. And so if I were to say, look, the right has been pro-war for the last 20 years, that's factually correct. Now, you yourself might be a right-winger in the cubicle of that tent that is against war. Fine, then I'm not talking about you. But you cannot say that the folks in your tent were not pro-war for the last 20 plus years, because you have been. Those are facts. Well, on the left side of the aisle, everybody knows how Sori and I feel about abortion. Now, you may be a pro-life Democrat. Those, they exist. You might be a pro-life blue stater, blue person. They exist. I know some of them personally. But it cannot be denied that it has been the left wing that is celebrating when you can abort babies at the 9-month in New York City. We did an entire documentary on it. That's the left. Okay, so look, I am not going to qualify myself to death in every single video. You don't do it in normal conversation, and I'm not going to do it. If you'd like a channel that does that, look, there's millions of channels on YouTube. I'm sure you can find one that qualifies themselves to death in every single story they do. I'm not that guy. Furthermore, I'm just going to lay out where I am and why we call the show Middle America. So I got a right-wing tent, I got a left-wing tent. Here's the problem that I have. If I go in the right-wing tent as a pro-lifer, I don't like war. Okay? I don't like war, and I also believe, I just heard Kyle Kalinske, and I haven't validated this yet, Kyle Kalinske says we're losing between 30 and 45,000 Americans to preventable illnesses because of our current healthcare system. That, to me, is a pro-life issue. This sort of libertarian, laissez-faire, hey man, if you can't afford it, you should have saved up, I think is a deplorable and evil mindset to have, actually. And I've said as such in videos where healthcare is addressed. The impulse on the right side to go to war. I'm about to shoot a video on the $750 billion plus budget that just got approved for war, for our defense budget. And right-wingers don't seem to have a problem being fine with that. I have a serious issue with that because I'm pro-life. I've mentioned on a multitude of occasions that we killed 30 pine nut farmers in Afghanistan about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And I made the statement, right-wingers generally don't care about that. The fact of the matter is, many right-wingers heard that and then went on with their day and didn't even blink an eyeball. That's the world as I see it. That's why I can't plant myself securely on the under the right-wing tent. On the other side, I'm sorry, but the left is way too aggressive about abortion. I think abortion is the human rights evil of the last 300 years. I think it's an absolutely abhorrent and evil practice that I ask God to forgive our nation for every single day. I know that there are nuances even to the abortion discussion, like rape, incest, and life of the mother, etc., etc. I understand that. Mostly what I'm talking about is the 99% of abortions. By the way, I don't believe in abortion even in the cases of rape, but 99% of abortions that happen are not to do with that at all, and you can find that in the Guttmacher Institute, which is basically the reporting propaganda arm of Planned Parenthood. I think that's a tremendous evil. I think the laws that were passed last year, particularly abortion on demand up to basically on demand, up to 9 months. That's the goal of the RHA. They explicitly said it themselves. You can see in the documentary themselves, they want abortion on demand. That's the left. Those are facts. It's just the facts. It's a generalization. Now look, if you are not a pro-abortion leftist, I'm not talking about you. If you're not a pro-war Trump can do no wrong, cult of personality right-winger, I'm not talking about you. But you cannot say that in the big tent sense that both of those are irrelevant. Look, here's the other thing. Somebody said, well, you've been very critical of the left lately. Yes. Do you know why? Because what has been dominating our media for the last 2.5, 3 years has been Russia, 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 Mueller report, Mueller report, Mueller report, Ukraine, 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 which is all a complete and total waste of time and money and has exposed a bunch of corruption on the left. Those are facts. If I was shooting Middle America during the Obama administration and the right-wingers tried to impeach or strip Obama of his presidency based on this birther nonsense, I would be shooting and look, they spent $25 million on it and did it for 3 years and then had FBI agents and doing all types of craziness, modifying emails and such, committing 17 FISA violations and all the rest of it, and holding some silly kangaroo trial or whatever you call it at the House, like what we just saw with Sondland, who basically said, well, I thought he said, like if the right-wingers were doing that silliness, I would be doing a show about the birther nonsense every other day, and I would be criticizing the right. The fact of the matter is, in a news cycle, there are certain things that are way more important than others, and this is an obvious moment in history for us. I mean, we've only had, what, 2 other presidents impeached? The folks driving the impeachment are on the left, and their case is completely ridiculous. And I'm not the only one saying that. Everybody's saying that. Look, guys, the fact of the matter is, right now, impeachment is the name of the game. So I'm not going to say, well, I just shot this video on impeachment and I was really critical of the left. Now I'm going to find something, I'm going to dig something up so I can be critical of the right to satiate those people. I'm not doing that. Impeachment and the Mueller report and the Russia nonsense, all that stuff is significant to American history. The other thing is the Democratic debates. There are not Republican debates because we're going with the incumbent. That's what they're doing. So we're going with the Democratic debates. Well, if that happens, you've got Joe 330 Biden up there and Kamala Harris and all the rest of those people. I'm going to criticize them. They just happen to be on the left. Those are the facts. I'm not going to go and dig and try to find stuff. Like I said, there's a defense budget, which a video is coming soon about that. There's a whole bunch of other things. And look, guys, there's a whole bunch of things I could say way more critically about the left that I didn't. It had nothing to do with anything about the channel. It was just I didn't have the time, and we have another channel, and that other channel is the #1 obligation. And so there are times when I really want to shoot a video, but I can't because we have to take care of the previous channel, which is fine. So I hope everybody has some clarity now. If I'm talking about leftists or right-wingers, I'm not talking about you specifically if you're in a different cubicle. I'm talking about the big tent. Red staters, blue staters, left-wing, right-wing, Republican, Democrat. You get the general idea. Now look, here's the most recent, one of the most recent Jimmy Dore videos. And look what he says.
Let's get into this James Comey interview on Fox News. Now, thank God James Comey got interviewed on Fox News, because if he would have got interviewed on MSNBC, you know what would have happened. They would have pretended like everything James Comey was saying was true, because MSNBC are liars. They lie for the establishment. That's what they do. Fox does too, but this not in this case. And again, what you're going to see in one of the silver linings on the gray cloud that is a Trump presidency, one of the silver linings is that the right wing are now finally becoming critical of the FBI and the intelligence community. Right? They're always the defenders. They're the one who pushed for the FISA. I mean, it's bipartisan, but they're always even more so. Democrats are supposed to be the defenders of civil liberties and blah, blah. They're not. But now it's the Democrats are completely defending and being the attack dogs for the establishment and the FBI. And it's the Republicans who are exposing the FBI's lies and malfeasance and general corruption. And unaccountability, by the way. There's that also.
I guess Jimmy Dore is a raging, biased right-winger. No, actually, Jimmy Dore is so left, that he left the Young Turks. That's how left Jimmy Dore is. You know what's interesting? I mentioned Christianity Crusades. If you're familiar with our other channel, when I talk about Christianity, now when I talk about Jesus, it's always positive, obviously. But when I talk about Christianity, I'm always extremely critical of Christianity because I'm criticizing the big tent. I know that my little cubicle exists, and my little cubicle is represented by literally millions and millions of people for literally thousands of years. So I know that my little nuanced form of Christianity exists, but I criticize the big tent Christianity. And you know what's interesting? I've never heard anybody say, "Why are you generalizing and slandering Christianity?" I'm not. You know what happens? When you're in a big tent, and the representatives of your big tent are being silly, the best thing to do from the cubicle is not to go after the people that are saying, "Hey, there's a problem with your tent." The best thing to do is criticize from within. That's what happens. That's what I do with Christianity, and that's what Jimmy Dore does with the left. Jimmy Dore is constantly criticizing the left. In the last year or so, all he's done is criticize the left, and he has been giving a ton of kudos to the right. He talks about Tucker Carlson many times in glowing reviews, and you just heard what he said about Fox News in contradistinction to left-wing outlets like MSNBC, CNN. He didn't say left-wing, he said Democrats, left, right-wingers, yada, yada, yada. You get the point. He just generalized left-wing media. Well, he's right, because Jimmy Dore is in the cubicle, but he knows that he's in the big tent. So guys, now look, I don't really have a home in the right wing or the left wing, as you could see through the comments I posted above. So I don't have a home either way. That's why we're Middle America, because we're kind of operating between two tents here. So look, guys, that's what's going on. If you can't, if the criticism of the left is too much for you, then don't watch Jimmy Dore. Don't watch me. There's lots of outlets you can watch that'll always say nice things about the left and always say, whatever. And I'm not telling you if you don't like it, kick rocks. I'm just telling you that I try to set a 30-minute limit for videos, and I'm not going to spend the first 5 to 10 minutes of these videos qualifying the thing to death. If I talk about left or right, it is with a full understanding that there are cubicles within that big tent. I get it. But at the same time, guys, let's just apply some rationale here. And again, I'm also not going to try to dig up a problem with a right-wing group when I'm reporting on impeachment. I'm not going to do that. I think Pelosi's crazy for leading this impeachment charge. I think she's crazy for not sending this stuff to the Senate. I think the DNC and the leftist media has secured a landslide victory for Trump next year. And I think they need to be held accountable for it. And the irony of this whole thing is that what people like myself, to a lesser degree, and Jimmy Dore, because even though we're kind of between tents, I am more inclined to the left tent, because I believe we can beat abortion at the state level while at the same time securing Medicare for all. And that to me is the best possible outcome if you're a pro-life person. So I'm actually slanted to the left. The problem is that it's this very attitude itself, where the inability to self-criticize and the exposed nerves and the sensitivities make it so that this stuff doesn't get talked about in the public sphere. And then you saw what happened in 2016. So the vast majority of the time that I'm critical of the left, especially in the last 5 or 6 videos, go check it yourself, is because I want a left-wing candidate in office. If anybody has the right to say that I'm biased, it would be right-wingers, because I have said on a multitude of occasions, and people have commented on the comment section. I haven't posted every comment from the right wing about my videos, but they're certainly not seeing it as me being biased to the right. As a matter of fact, I've had somebody tell me, how in the world can you possibly be a centrist when you're talking about all the time that you want a leftist in office? So Sorry guys, I do not agree that I'm punching the left or whatever the terminology is. Look, I'm not just gonna sit here and read the data and then sign off. I'm going to read the data and talk to you about the implications for our country as I see it. That's the entire point of the show. That's the entire point. So, look, much love to everybody. Believe me, I respect and honor all of you. When I say love your neighbor, take care of each other, it's literally from the heart. But I hope that fully explains my position. There's nothing else I can say about it that I haven't already said, and so we'll see you in the comment section, okay? And another thing that you can do to help is if you're on the left and you think that somebody on the right is doing something crazy, my buddy Alec will send me a text of these things. We've got a video coming up soon about a guy who got 15 years for something really crazy. Go to the Middle America site on Facebook, facebook.com/America Middle. Post it if you think it's you know, like at the level of like the defense budget, things like that. Post it there, and if I look at it and it's significant, then I'll report on it. So, you know, that's the other thing is, you know, get me some stories that you think are massive, because right now what's dominating the media is this impeachment stuff, and so that's what I'm going to report on. Love your neighbor. Take care of each other. Middle America, we are the media. Till next time, guys.